Hello everyone, my name is Pimsiri Danpisnupan. I'm a biology teacher from Kamnut Vidya Science Academy. Today, I would like you all to experience the journey from flowers to fruits. Here we go! Do you know how flowers evolved? Believe it or not, flowers were derived from a group of modified leaves on a very short branch. This is called the carpel evolution theory. The term carpel means the female reproductive organ. It evolved from a leaf whose edges fold over ovules, protecting them and becoming a specialized region which forms a pistil in flowering plants. In modern flowers, anything from a few to large numbers of carpels are fused to form a compound pistil. Generally, a typical flower has four main parts. First, sepal, outer covering which protects the flower when in bud. Second, petals, brightly colored modified leaves which function to attract pollinators. Third, the male part is called the stamen. It is composed of anther and filament. The anther is a pollen or male gamete producing organ. And last, the female part is called the pistil or carpel. It is composed of stigma, style, and ovary. Inside ovary there are ovules. Each of them is the structure that contains the female reproductive cells. You know it as the egg. To produce a new plant, we should know what the major processes of gamete fusion are. Of course, sexual reproduction is required. It is the process where male and female gametes are fertilized to form a zygote, which develops into a new individual with a unique collection of genetic materials. Pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from an anther to a stigma, and fertilization, which takes place inside the ovary when the nucleus of a pollen grain fused with the nucleus of an ovule to produce a zygote. In angiosperms, double fertilization occurs due to the involvement of two sperms. The first sperm will fertilize the egg to form a zygote, which will develop further, becoming an embryo and eventually a new seedling. The second sperm will fertilize the polar nuclei and form endosperm, which is going to be the food for the new seedling. Plants use several strategies, both biotic and abiotic agents, to spread their pollen for fertilization purposes. Such strategies are wind, water, or animals. There are some interesting studies on the relationship between living organisms and flowers. Plants and pollinators have undergone co-evolution, generating geographic diversification in the morphology of interacting species pairs. How can plants attract pollinators? Let's have a look. This study mentioned that some plants produce nectar and they create a long nectar sac. Insects have evolved, developing long tongues to allow them to reach the nectar through the nectar sacs. Can you see how wonderful this is? Some plants mimic insects in the design of their flower patterns. In this case, they have developed flowers which look similar to a female insect, which will attract the male insects to visit and fertilize them. In another case, they create a special nectar guide mark on the flower. Human beings and insects see objects differently as we detect different wavelengths of light than what insects do. The patterns of the flower petals can guide the insect to the nectar spot, as you can see from these various flower types. What happens after double fertilization? Seeds and carpels will begin to form from the embryo and the endosperm. The ovule becomes a seed. The ovary wall becomes an outer layer covering the seed, which we call the pericarp. However, not all fruits are simple. To understand which part of the fruit that we can eat, we need to better understand the flower structures and how the fruit develops. Fruit characteristics can be related to the type of flower they are formed from. Generally, flowers are divided into two major groups: simple flowers and inflorescence flowers. For simple flowers, if one flower consists of one ovary, it will develop to become a simple fruit. If one flower consists of several ovaries, they will develop to become an aggregate fruit. In the case of inflorescence flowers, if a cluster of flowers fuse together to form a fruiting body, we will call this type of fruit as a multiple fruit. Each individual flower has different position of the ovary, which is determined by the insertion points. This is where the other floral parts come together and attach to the surface of the ovary. If you look at this picture, you can divide the position of the ovary into three types. The first one, a hypogynous flower, contains a superior ovary. That means that the ovary is sitting above the other parts. The second one, an epigynous flower, has an inferior ovary and the ovary wall is covered and fully attached by the hypanthium. The last one, a perigynous flower, also has a superior ovary, but in this case, the receptacles are extended to form a hypanthium. This hypanthium will lift the other parts above the normal level if you compare it with the hypogynous flower example. Let me show you some fruits that developed from the different types of flowers we just discussed. The first one, longan, is a simple fruit which is developed from a single flower having one ovary. It has a hypogynous flower type. You can see the part of what we eat. This is called the aril. It is originated from the seed funiculus. The second example, plum, has characteristics from perigynous flowers. The part that we eat, the fresh meat, developed from the ovary wall. We can also call this part of the fruit the mesocarp. The next one is apple. It has developed from an epigynous single flower. Its receptacle has been enlarged, and this is the part that we eat. Next, strawberry fruits develop from a single flower which contains several ovaries. In this case, you can see hypogynous flower. The small part we call seeds are fruitlets that develop from one ovary. The ovaries are sitting on the receptacle. By the way, the part that we eat, the red part, is the enlarged receptacle. And the last example is pineapple. A fruit developed from an inflorescence flower, while it is one fruit. It is what we call a multiple fruit. You can see from this picture what the inflorescence flowers look like. After that, the flowers are fused together to become only one fruit. I hope you all now understand how fruits develop and which parts of the fruit that we eat. Thank you for watching.